a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a ride.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Poszerzona rzeczywistość. Expanding reality.
Mike Sygula, Truth Theory. TruthTheory.com, your Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and website, as I just said, will all be linked down in the show description. Brother, it is so cool to see you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Brendan. Thanks for this opportunity to speak on your show. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say on some of the questions you might have. Yeah.
Dude, so pumped to connect with you. You're a connection through our mutual brother, Chris Matthew, of course, of Forbidden Knowledge News. Shout out. And you're an OG, man. You've been doing this since 2010. You've got just an amazing amount of work underneath you here. You put out content regularly. Your YouTube is banging, which, again, guys, all the ways to find him linked below. You're us in Poland. You know what I mean? You're just this amazing expanded version of all of these interests and topics and exploration into mysteries. And you, my friend, have had some fascinating things along your journey as well, which we're going to talk about. So before we get to all of that cool shit, man, again, guys, all the ways linked below. And if you want to catch the afterthought, all the bonus stuff, check the link at the top as well. Dude, tell us a little bit about you, man.
Yeah, no. So, I grew up here in Poland. I've been living abroad for many years. So I actually have dual citizenship. I have British passport as well because I lived in London for many years. But first 20 years of my life, I was living here in Poland. And I guess I did not really have a lot of crazy paranormal experiences or interests. But somewhere around 2002, when I was 19, I started having a lot of these intuitive thoughts about karma, past lives, tarot cards, for example. I remember I would understand how tarot cards work without ever reading anything about them. So I had these intuitive ideas, and I thought maybe this has something to do with me doing this type of work in my past lives, maybe, or whatever. So I started investigating some of that. And, when I moved to London, 2005, I really started exploring a lot of different subjects. So I would go to different groups, theosophy, some New Age groups, Buddhist groups, Taoist groups, Spiritist groups, Wiccan groups, all these different types of philosophies or spiritual movements, and I would just learn. And I think one of the things about me is that because I always was into sports and I worked quite hard since I was a teenager, so I had a lot of self-discipline just to experiment on myself. So let's say I would read about some practice, and normally you would have to do a course or take some classes, whatever. I would just sit on my own, spend a couple of weeks and try to see if this is true or not, if this works or not. So this was kind of my approach for many years. I would basically try all sorts of different things on myself. Sometimes it would have negative results, sometimes positive, but through that I learned a lot about a lot of the subjects we are interested in through experience. So I could kind of prove it to myself that there is something to these types of teachings. So let me give you a couple of examples. So let's say, I had this period where I was doing like Reiki type of healing, Qigong, and different types of healing modalities I was experimenting with. And for example, there was this technique called absent healing, which basically is like you visualize white light going through you and you try to send it through your heart center to someone on distance. And I would try that with my mother, who was located, 1,000 kilometers away or something. She was in Poland, I was in England, and she had some knee problem. And we would talk on Skype, and I would basically focus on her knee, try to send her energy. And after half an hour, when I was warming up, exactly the same time, she said, "Oh, my knee is warming up," So I had this kind of, let's say, the evidence for myself over and over that a lot of these teachings or these concepts are real. For example, I read stuff about out-of-body experiences, and then I had some period when I was actually practicing different out-of-body experience techniques, and one night I had an out-of-body experience. So this was kind of my path for many years, where I would experiment with different things. And then I guess around 2008 or 9, I had this experience which some people might think, maybe guy was hallucinating or something, because I smoked a little bit of weed, went to bed, and I saw this white light above my forehead, and I started having this kind of electric shock. Someone would basically send healing energy towards you, and imagine having Reiki, but amplify it 100 times. So I had this experience. It lasted maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. And at that time, I was shaking in bed. And, I was familiar with weed, so I know this wasn't a hallucination or anything. I feel like maybe the weed was just for me to be more open to the energy. And a couple of years later, I met a few people who actually had very similar experience, and they said it was just some kind of Kundalini awakening. So after this experience, this is like 2008 or 9, I started becoming very sensitive to energies. So for example, I would go to a forest and I could feel the energy of trees, or I would go to a church and I would feel energy of prayer inside the church, or I would go to a room where they do some kind of healing methods and I would straight away start getting tingling in my forehead, where, my chakras and palms and things like that. So I thought, maybe because I'm doing all these healing modalities and I'm doing Qigong and things like that, maybe I'm just becoming more sensitive to energies. But then I stopped doing Qigong, and these abilities stayed with me till today. So I realized later on that evening when I had this weird experience, I had some kind of upgrade, like a single upgrade, where basically my energy body was activated and I became more sensitive. Then after that, at the same period, same time, I started having these prophetic dreams. Very often I would have a dream about something that's going to happen tomorrow or things like that. Very often symbolic, some kind of warnings about, some kind of guidance in dreams and things like that. And then, I remember, for example, reading a book about spirits, and one day, and the moment when I read the line about spirits, I had this, like someone's tapping me in my ear, like just to pay attention, So I started paying attention to these types of taps. And later on, when I was doing my sessions with psychedelics, which were really profound for me, I've done 7 years of these, I would connect with my guides and my higher self, and they would explain to me that actually that night when I had this activation, this was designed on purpose so I could start communicating with my spirit guides. And basically these taps became a form of communication. So sometimes, I can ask a question, I get like tap in my right hand might mean yes, tap in my left hand might mean no. If I have to pay attention to something, I gonna get like someone's putting finger into my ear, things like that. So I started developing some of these abilities. And, 2011, for example, I met a girl, and turned out that she's my twin flame. So she's very psychic, and she remembers a lot of our past lives and things like that. And it's also, when I was doing psychedelic sessions, I would ask a lot of questions about my past lives and things like that. And one time I asked, for example, how many times did we incarnate together with her? And the answer came straight away, thousands. So it's kind of funny because she's like from June, I'm from December. We have a lot of opposites and similarities. And in a way, like with twin flames, is that, I have my abilities, let's say, as a thinker, I can analyze very deeply different concepts. And then she has her senses developed because she's very psychic. So she can actually see some of these different realms, different beings, and then prove that to me, and things like that. So together we had a lot of, let's say, we could do a lot of stuff. But what happened was that at that time, I was very much into partying, as we talked about last time, and I was abusing myself with alcohol and drugs for a couple of years. And when we met, I met her, and she's like super sensitive, very psychic. So when we moved together, started living together, she started saying that basically me and my brother, because of some of our past and things like that, we attract a lot of these negative beings around us, and she doesn't like it. And she cannot, because she's so sensitive, she can see them and they are attacking her, whatever. So she said she could not stay around us because of that. And one day, for example, we found my brother, who had at that time big problems with like drugs and alcohol. We found him, he overdosed, and we found him on the floor. And when we entered the room, my Raquel, she said she saw two shadow beings jumping and feeding off him. So basically, when he was like laying overdose on the ground, she saw these like archonic or whatever beings kind of feeding off this energy. So what happened was that, because of that, one day she left and she disappeared, and she just sent me a message, said like, I cannot be around you because you attract all these bad beings, negative entities. And she just disappeared. And basically, I was heartbroken, and things like that. And I prayed. Basically, I just prayed to God, I want to get her back. I grew up Catholic, so I had this program about praying to God and things like that. And a couple of months later, we started speaking again. And she started telling me that there is this being that shows up very often around her because she sees spirits and things like that looks like me, but 20 years older. So she said, there's this being that looks like you, wears the same clothing, but it's older. And she said, he's helping me out with things, like, for example, she was doing an exam because she got qualified as a practitioner with a method called life alignment, which is a healing modality from South Africa. So basically, when she had her exams, she said that this guy would kind of whisper to her ear how to do the exam or stuff like that. So, one day, this is 2012, I was with her and I said to her, let's call this being, this entity, and I'm going to be asking questions and you're going to tell me what is he saying, basically. So, we called him and I asked him, like, what's the relationship between you and me? And he said he morphed his face into my face, showing me that it's basically me, and then morphed back to this older look. Then I asked him, can you help me with anything? And then she said he pulled this ring with different keys, basically symbolically meaning maybe different paths or different doorways, things like that, right? So we started doing these sessions and we learned that basically this is my higher self that appears to her as my older version. And then he gave us his name, which Amadeus, which basically he said this is just for me to call him when I need and things like that. And this was kind of my beginning of my relationship with my higher self, officially, let's say, conscious relationship. So sometimes, I would need some guidance and things like that. I'm asking, like, Amadeus, what about this? And then I might get a download, might have a dream about something, things like that. So, he also became her guide because we're twin flames, etc. So I think what happened was that, because when we separated, I prayed and then he stepped in to kind of got us back together. And we got back together afterwards. Then we had like a couple of times when we would go back and split up again, things like that. But that was, like kind of my beginning of my relationship with my higher self.
Damn, man. To think that like somebody you just knew was getting guidance from someone she just thought you looked like you a little bit from, but a little in the future, she's like, yeah, you kind of look like you, but 20 years from now. And then for you to connect with it, find out about that. And then now, so does she still connect with your higher self or does she connect with a different thing? Was that just sort of to lead that version of you to you? And then now she, how's this work?
So, I'm not so much in touch with her over the last year or two. We've been together on and off a couple of times over the last 10 years. Like maybe 2 years ago, I would ask, she would say, yeah, once in a while he shows up. She would never want to talk about her higher self because we all have our own higher selves. So when I ask her about her higher self, she's kind of very secretive about it. She does, sometimes people are afraid about like even giving a name of your higher self because it could be a target for black magic rituals or something like that.
Yeah, or an archon playing. I've heard that as well, that the higher self can be an archonic entity just posing as your higher self. But all the shit's just fascinating that you could get the ultimate answers, but asterisk, it could always be an archon just fucking with you,
Yeah, but I had experiences when, I would basically become my higher self on psychedelics. So then I would be able to see what it is like to see from the level of higher self. And this is, so this is kind of what happened a little bit later after that. So, around 2015, basically, I was a little bit, let's say, lost. So I was running True Fear for a couple of years, and I was into these types of subjects, trying to do this type of work. But I thought this is, never gonna get very big. I had these big ambitions, and a lot of people laugh from these types of topics, etc. So I wanted to do some kind of startup, and basically I got into a startup which was like a social networking website I worked on for 2 years, and it was kind of like this ego goal, basically, trying to be a CEO or whatever, and everything was kind of against me. I was, the guy that I worked with, we argued all the time. I didn't like it. It was extremely stressful, things like that. But I had this program that this is what I should be doing, things like that. So what happened was that 2015, I went on holidays to Czech Republic just for like a 1-week trip with my cousin, who's like really close to me, and he's been working for me for many years. And, we met a friend that we know for a couple of years. And then there was this other guy in Czech who I knew from the internet, and he was like very serious into psychedelics. He used to run some Facebook groups about psychedelics, was making Terence McKenna videos on YouTube and things like that. So I was kind of in touch with this guy for a couple of years. And I thought, it's good. I'm going to be around, so let's meet with him. So I met him. This was like 2015, summer solstice. I was 33 exactly. And he was living in the mountains in Czech. And I stayed with him, his girlfriend, my cousin, for a couple of days. And, I said, let's do some psychedelics. I know you're the guy. I have not done any psychedelics since I was probably 19 or something. So that was like quite a long break. And when I was younger, this was just for fun. But this was, like I was fully mature. This guy knows what he's doing. And we had like a synthetic psilocybin, and he did some kind of ceremony. So we went to the mountains. Basically, one of the big things that happened during this session was that I became my higher self. So I could basically see myself in this massive form, like, being like multidimensional, basically, where everything on earth was kind of happening in my mind. It's almost like you wake up from a dream for a couple of seconds, and 33 years on earth seems like 3 hours there, because over the next couple of years I would come back to that state a couple of times, and everything here, like here you have 1 year, and there is like 10 minutes has passed, so it's a very different state. So for example, and when I got to that level, I was being guided that I'm not following my path, that I went, I basically started doing this startup, went into the materialism, whatever. This is going to end up really badly for me. I should not be doing that. I'm not following myself, blah, blah. And I was in such a shock, when I had this experience, because I didn't even expect anything like that. I just went on holidays. And I came back from this state, came back to the matrix, like completely, my mind was blown away. They had to literally help me to carry me home because I was in such a shock that after a couple of months of grinding, I forgot about it, and I got back to doing the same thing. So basically I didn't listen. And then over the next couple of years, because I started doing psychedelics more often, I had this experience a couple of times when I would come back to that state again, and it's like, you're still not listening, you're still not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So finally, after a couple of times, I just started paying attention. But, this event, this experience started this 7-year path where basically I started doing sessions with mushrooms almost, sometimes even a couple of times a year, every few months. And every session would be prepared, I'd go into the nature, somewhere in the mountains, do my ceremony, which basically often would be just, connect with my higher self. And I would say something like, I want to know what's the most important thing for me, for example, as my kind of intention. But very often, I think because maybe, because I've been meditating for whatever, I started meditating probably 2006 or 7. So for at least a decade at that time, I guess, my psychic abilities opened a little bit, because when I was doing mushrooms, for example, I could basically do anything I wanted. I could get answer to any question. I could jump into any past life. I could jump into other densities. Even sometimes I could see myself in different bodies and things like that. So when you work with the higher self, and especially, if you are a little bit psychic or your third eye is open, and you'd use mushrooms as amplifiers, because this is how you can literally relive a lifetime for a moment or whatever. So I started asking questions and digging into like who I was before, what's my mission here, blah, blah, blah. And also I started having a lot of interactions with different types of beings as well. Some of them positive, some of them negative. And another really interesting thing from this whole story is what happened with my cousin. So, I was close with my cousin. He was been working for me as my assistant for many years on True Theory and things like that. And he also had some issues with drugs and alcohol. He was very depressed for many years. And one time he overdosed, basically. He mixed some 2 drugs that he shouldn't mix, and he had a near-death experience. And what happened was that, he said he found himself in this space, which is like a kind of black, kind of, energetic space. He said it's very kind of calm, nice feeling. He could feel this energetic wind, and suddenly he hears a voice speaking to him saying, you're about to die, you overdosed, your brain is overheating. Do you want to stay or do you want to leave? And he was like, I think I've had enough. Basically, he had a very challenging life. It's like from childhood, his father would beat him up. He had a lot of issues and things like that. So he was like so depressed that he thought, maybe I want to finish, basically. And then when he said he wants to leave, he said that what happened was he saw like his soul plan. So basically, every event from his life was shown to him. From the birth, he said, including that near-death experience, and then like what's supposed to happen afterwards with a couple of different exit options, like departure options. And the voice said, if you're gonna leave now, you still have a couple of things to finish here. You will probably have to repeat that in your next incarnation. So he said, okay, in this case, I want to stay. So when he said he wants to stay, he said that all that was wiped out. Basically, like this whole soul plan that he was shown was just disappeared. And he said he doesn't remember almost anything, apart from like seeing it all. And, the voice said, okay, before you're gonna come back to your body, you still have a couple of moments left. Is there anything you want to know? And he said, well, I want to know why my life looks the way it looks, why it's so full of suffering and things like that. So he said what he saw was basically like he saw suddenly this massive reptilian humanoid standing in front of a UFO. And there was another lower being with like long white hair, and they were talking, and reptilian was basically like really angry and kind of feeding off fear of the other person. And the other person said something about love, and the reptilian was like, what is love? I want to know what is love. So when he saw that, he kind of got this glimpse that this is his past life, basically. This reptilian humanoid was him. And what we think happened was that he was shown the moment where he made the decision to kind of move to the positive side, whatever. And, so I found out that my cousin had this experience. Then my ex, Raquel, she said she remembers some of her past lives where she was telling me like, oh, she had these lifetimes as a reptilian with like big wings and things like that. So I felt like, okay, what about me? Maybe we're in a soul group. Maybe I had some of these lifetimes as well. So I started digging through my sessions. And, one time I asked this question, and then I see a scene where I see my legs basically with like, kind of like a reptile, whatever. And I was like, I knew it, and the next mushroom session I was doing, I started going deep and I started asking more questions. And I was being shown for a couple of minutes lifetimes where I was like doing all sorts of negative things. So like, a lot of things, medieval ages, like killing people, things like that, black magic rituals. I would see these scenes, and it was like 5 minutes being bombarded with these scenes as visions, as kind of like going through these scenes. And basically like all the worst things you can imagine. And I'm like, I'm saying to my higher self, like, okay, I understand. I don't want to watch that anymore. I have enough.
I just
And
want to
it's
ask
like,
real quick, would
yeah.
the scenes from your perspective seeing the actions being done with your hands, or
I
was
had
it from seeing and you knew
both.
which one you were? So you could see your
Both.
forms in all of these. Now, were you human in some, and were they different?
I mean, from that, I remember humanoid lifetimes.
So was it like on this planet lifetimes, on this planet doing black magic stuff and killing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a lot of like some kind of battles in like burning witches, like killing people in these kind of like medieval times. I remember one lifetime where I had this like a hood basically, and doing there were like pentagrams made of candles and doing some black magic ritual. And I had this lifetime shown at different time and explain a little bit about it as well. We can go into that in a second. But basically, I was because on mushrooms, I would just had I would tap in and I would just ask questions and be shown these things. If I had negative beings, which I had many times, I would straight away feel who I'm dealing with, because if something is tapping into my third eye on mushrooms, I'm so sensitive that I straight away know who I'm dealing with. I can feel the personality, if this is male, female, old, young, if this is whatever it is, humanoid, reptile, whatever. So, I was being shown that for a couple of minutes, and I said, I've had enough. I don't want to watch that anymore. I understand. Okay. I know I used to do these types of things maybe. And I'm hearing, no, you wanted to know. Let's continue. And another 5 minutes of that, bang, 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 I'm being bombarded with this. And I'm like, I've had enough. I don't want to watch that anymore. And I'm hearing, finally it stopped. I was completely exhausted, after that, because it's very emotional. And I'm hearing, this is why you should not be focusing on this stuff, not paying attention on these types of negative things. Because the more you do it, the more you attract them. So the same evening, I actually, there was some reptilian dude showed up, tapped into my third eye. He's like, I could feel who I'm dealing with. So he was super angry. And he's like, you are a traitor. We make pacts, And I'm like, time to evolve, basically. He knew who I was. I don't know who he was, but basically he had similar traits like my dad. And it's funny, I was shown quite a lot of stuff about these lifetimes. And even my dad, who has perfect features, it's really crazy. I don't want to talk about him because he'll probably not want to know I'm talking about him. But I was shown that he was, in those lifetimes, he was my father as a reptilian as well. So, I started learning some of this stuff through these experiences. And for example, I was getting a lot about also the control system, how everything works here. I started getting myself through my experiments, this is outside of psychedelics, into issues with, doing some kind of rituals and manifestation practices. I was quite, let's say, careless, I used to have this approach where I would just, whatever, I don't care. Let's try and see.
But isn't that the way, though? That's how you do it. You jump in full balls, because everybody's given different information. And the information you're usually given at first, I would say, is to lead you astray. So you're going to conjure some weird shit, mostly, right, when you start this. But isn't that part of the process, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, now, because of, I had so many issues because of some of my experiments, some of them really bad, into accidents when my brother ended up with broken spine and things like that. So really hardcore stuff. And because of that, I learned how the dark side operates. I understand their methods now, right, and how to protect ourselves and things like that, how to avoid that. So I guess it was a part of my process, because when I think about all this now, I understand how they work. I can expose them. I know how to protect myself. I know how to avoid that. So I can teach others about these types of things. So I feel like it was a part of my journey, perhaps. But, I would honestly, I had some absolutely hardcore experiences where I barely ended up alive, and I would not want anyone else to go through anything like that.
I think anybody worth a shit here lately, especially the folks we talk to, have stories exactly like this, to very dire ends to where they almost didn't end up alive one way or another. Either suicide was a very strong option for them or all kinds of things, man. Their choices drug-wise or, life decisions, anything like that. And they do play a massive role in your personal shift. It's like you need to be really drugged through the shit. And those that can really face themselves and be drugged through it are sort of worth the lessons on the other side, but you got to be strong enough, right?
Yeah, I feel like the more hardcore experiences, the stronger I was able to kind of overcome them. Like the most hardcore, which I think probably I should give a little bit more background before I gonna get into that, because this was 2022. But basically, I had an interaction with Lucifer for 2 hours, and it tried to take me over, and it was like the most hardcore experience ever. And for 2 hours I was doing breath of fire, trying to get him out. So breath of fire is like super rapid breathing through your nose.
Yeah.
So normally you can maybe do it for 10 minutes. I was doing it for 2 hours because nothing really worked. Like I had these types of experiences where I would have some attacks and things like that, which would last 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. This one was 2 hours. And it was like total blackout. I just feel it takes me over and boom. And I cannot do anything. I don't see anything. But before we maybe going to get into why it happened and all this stuff, I think I need to still give a little bit more background on like the previous couple of years. So, like I said, I was experimenting a lot with different rituals and different practices in a careless way. And I had a couple of these situations where I got myself in karmic contracts where I would not, understand the consequences and things like that. So for example, 2016, I just wrote down like a wish on piece of paper. I want to have this kind of girlfriend, whatever. I wrote down a couple of characteristics and things like that. And then, literally like 3 weeks passed or something. And I met this perfect girl. She's like a former EDM singer, like super hot, super intelligent, whatever. And I was like, started dating, and then we got together. And it was more or less what I just wrote down on that piece of paper a couple of weeks before. But we were arguing all the time, and I was kind of like everything was kind of forced, and I was very unusual for me because I'm not a guy who gets into arguments and things like that. So it was kind of like, yes, you got what you wanted, but it's completely not what you expected, like in a completely different form. So, it was kind of like 5-6 months of dating, to being together, and then towards the end we went to Budapest. Like basically it was like a holiday. She was filming a documentary about veganism with some other girl there, things like that. So this was like falling apart already, our relationship basically. And my dad was driving by actually from Poland to Budapest around the time when I was there, and I was living in London. So he said, you know what, I'm going to be around. Maybe I can pick you up from Budapest. You can come to Poland for a couple of days, and then come back to London sometime. I was like, yeah, why not? Okay, let's do it. So, this was a coincidence. Obviously, there are no coincidences, but he picked me up. We came back to Poland. It was... I remember it was like this weird date, something like 1609, like 696. It was 2016, September 16. I think it was full moon, was a date like that. And I came back to Poland, and my brother, who had, he had massive problems with alcohol and drugs for a couple of years already. He basically just left a rehab facility early, like because he just escaped basically from rehab, and he came exactly like the day before I arrived or something. And he was like super agitated, really kind of not in the best shape. And we had this crazy day, like he was drinking alcohol. I was with my mom and he was around and things like that. And he was like drinking for a whole day and then asking, me for some money to get more booze, basically. And, he had this kind of issue for a couple of years. Now he recovered fully. But basically, towards the evening, we got a little bit agitated with him, annoyed, and I said, I'm not giving you money anymore, blah, 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 whatever. So we got, basically, he was like doing some kind of tantrum, like, oh, yeah, if you're not going to give me any money, I'm just going to jump out of balcony. And I'm like, for nothing going to happen. It's ground floor. There's like 2 meters high, whatever. So nothing going to happen. And he was like, I got to jump. And I said, okay, jump, whatever, and he jumped. And he broke his spine, basically. He fell on his heels and broke spine in 2 places. And I felt, fortunately, he recovered after that, like 99% or something. He's okay, basically. So it wasn't like really bad, total paralysis or anything like that. But, and after that, I came back to London and we split up straight away with this girl. I felt like, is there any connection between these two things? I felt like maybe this is like some kind of deal because I just literally like permitted him to jump. Like I said, yeah, jump, nothing gonna happen. And then boom, this happened. And, until this happened a couple of times with different situations, after several of these types of incidents, I finally started connecting that there was a connection here. There is actually more to this story. So, for example, another event, 2017, I had, like I said, I had a lot of these experimentation with these methods and rituals. I don't even know what exactly happened, but one night, and I used to get a lot of dreams about all sorts of things. So one night I have this dream where basically I see, I used to check statistics on my website like 100 times a day. So, you have Google Analytics and it kind of shows you how many people are visiting your website in a given moment. So this is something at that time I was checking like, all the time basically. And normal data would be something like maybe whatever, 100, 200 people on the website in a given moment, and maybe maximum 500 people, something. And I had this dream where I saw my statistics and it hit 8,000 people, which was crazy number because we're talking about 8,000 people in a given moment. So this is millions of views, right? This is like how you calculate that. And I never had this type of traffic ever. Mostly I had maybe like 1,000 people on the website or whatever, 500 people on the website, something like that. So 8,000 people in a given moment is like really crazy traffic. And the next day, I had this thing in my dream. I saw the statistics with 8,000 people. And next day I woke up and, statistics as usual, a few hundred people on the site in a moment. And then like they start going up and up and up. And over the next day, for the next couple of hours, they hit 8,000 people, exactly like in the dream the night before. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So basically what happened was that some kind of story went viral on Facebook and it just brought like millions of views. And basically, at the same time, because I was making money from advertising, it generated a lot of money as well. So it started some kind of crazy traffic over the next couple of weeks. And, and then, so this is 2017. Then towards the end of the year, I went to do ayahuasca in Peru, basically. And during that session, I'm just gonna, like, I'm not gonna go into all the details, but one of the things that happened there, I was shown like there were these demons, whatever, and they would kind of I would get these visions of like material possessions, like money would show up, a watch that I bought like a few months earlier would show up. And I said, I don't want anything from you, you know? I just, whatever I had, I just throw it on the floor. I said, I'm not taking anything from you. So I came back from this ceremony and literally like all the money that I generated from this crazy period, like it was a couple of months, over the next 8 months or something, I started losing all that money. So basically, no matter what I tried, like I could try anything, all sorts of like different moves, different business partnerships, whatever. I started losing all that money. And and it got to a level where basically like my company almost collapsed, and it was really crazy. It was really aggressive, and I could try anything, and it wasn't working. And so normally, what happens when I'm in some kind of issues, I always like ask for guidance and things like that. So, for example, one time I had a dream where my mom would appear and she would say, you don't want them to take from you, nominate someone else. And I'm like, why would my mom want to tell me anything like that? So I thought it was a hijacked dream, basically, like trying to like get some kind of contract on someone else and things like that. So what I think happened was basically through these techniques or whatever, I got myself in some kind of karmic contract where I manifested the money. But then in the ceremony, I canceled the contract. I said, I don't want anything from you. And they said, okay, let's take whatever we gave you, now. So just to kind of get you into that, fuck you up, basically. So you end up with nothing. And I was in a really bad scenario, like literally facing bankruptcy and things like that. It was like really hardcore on every level. And, I started getting like asking my higher self, what can I do about this situation? So one night I had a couple of dreams shown that I need to start helping other people. So I'd have these different scenes, like there was like some guy, homeless guy, I would give him some food. Another scene, there is a couple fighting, I'm separating them. So I would be shown basically just improve your karma, start helping other people. And I started doing that. And everything stopped. Like this whole period, which lasted whatever 8 months or something, where I was losing all the money, just suddenly stopped. I started like helping one guy. I did a website for one guy for free and started just doing good deeds to others with not expecting anything in return. So this was another one of those when I kind of started learning a little bit about these contracts and deals with these beings and things like that. So, for example, another one was like 2019. I prayed to Jesus. I used to have this period when I thought Jesus is the real deal. And I thought, because like one experience I had when I was younger, I thought, praying to Jesus is okay, whatever. And normally I would ask for like some guidance, whatever, or protection, things like that. But that time I asked for actually help in business. So this was 2019. And when I was doing that, I was meditating and did this prayer. I had a vision of a contract. Like I saw a piece of paper with my signature. And I felt like, why would Jesus give me a contract? It doesn't make any sense. And what started happening after that, so, I started having, again, like success, let's say in business, like there was this partnership that I really wanted for many years. And it just worked out within like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And so things started moving, let's say. But at the same time, whenever something is wrong, I started getting dreams. I started getting like, showing me what's going on and watch out for this or that. So I started getting dreams that I'm being like prepared for a barbecue by some, demons, whatever. Like sometimes it's like symbolic like that. So I felt like, oh no, again, I got myself into something, some kind of dodgy contract. Wasn't a Jesus or anything like that. And another interesting thing what happened was I started feeling this heavy energy on the right side on my back because, like I said, I had this experience. I'm sensitive. I feel my auric field. I started having this heavy energy on the right side. And by the way, when I was talking about this whole experience in 2017, when I had this ayahuasca experience and like this manifestation thing, then I also had the same thing. I had this heavy energy on the right side on my back, So I thought this is kind of interesting and unusual. And, finally what happened was that I had this dream where basically, like, just to cut long story short, like there are these beings trying to take me over. This massive angel came, like just a massive angel with wide wings came, grabbed my hand and saved me from the situation. So I had this dream. The next day, I'm like, okay, I know I have a contract. I'm in some kind of dodgy contract, 100%. Let's think about how I can remove that. So I started doing research on YouTube. Yeah, you want to add something? No.
No, you're beautiful, man. This is fascinating. Yeah.
So basically what happened was I started doing a research after this dream. I had this dream where this massive angel came and saved me, whatever. And I'm looking on YouTube how to cancel karmic contracts because I knew probably I get myself in some contract again. And then I found this meditation by a guy called Wolfgang, who has a YouTube channel, Tools for Ascension by Wolfgang. And he has a lot of these advanced meditations about like trying to remove some kind of implants, curses, things like that. So I found this meditation, guided meditation, which basically turned out that one of the things that happens in the meditation is that you're calling Archangel Michael to help you to remove the contract, which is funny because the night before I found this meditation, I had a dream of a massive angel that saves me, basically. And it's funny because I had more these types of interactions with Michael, by the way. So it's kind of like this is what happened. And in the meditation, he's like, you call him, he's doing that. And basically, so I did the meditation. The energy disappeared on my back the same day. And then I had this massive scar, like I had a vision of a big scar on literally half of my back. I saw my back when I was meditating the same day, and I saw a scar on the right-hand side where I had this heavy energy, right? So what happened, because later it happened a couple of more times, the more times it happened, the more I started like understanding what's going on. So what happened was that, I prayed to Jesus. Probably wasn't Jesus. Someone maybe hijacked the prayer or whatever. I don't know. Maybe Jesus is not real. Who knows? But basically, it wasn't Jesus. And, what I think happened was that because the contract wasn't valid, right? Because you want whatever Jesus, and maybe this is someone else. Someone like Michael can step in and cancel the contract and remove the implant. Because what happens is that very often when you have these contracts, this is like black magic, whatever, like you do some ritual, you get something for it, but then a payment or part of the payment that you might have like an etheric implant on your back, whatever, for example. I had another experience like that where, for example, I was doing psychedelics one time, and I'm, when I'm doing that, I'm way more sensitive. So I feel like these things, for example, like if I have an implant, whatever, and I felt that I had something attached to my root chakra. I could literally feel like someone is sucking the energy from my root chakra. And, I was like, I asked Michael, can you remove that? And straight away, I got a vision, boom, showing me a lifetime, which I remember from that thing I said about like how, I was being bombarded with these negative lifetimes. So there was one scene where I remember, I had this like hood, and it was like this kind of like from the movies, basically like pentagram made of candles or something like that, and doing some black magic, basically. So when I asked to have that thing on the root removed, I straight got a vision about that lifetime and explained that I did some black magic ritual, and this is payment basically. Like I had something attached to my root chakra. So, the more I started having these types of experiences and experimenting with these things, the more I started kind of understanding the idea, what's going on here. Like basically you have this free will concept, you have karmic contracts, and very often you have all these negative beings that take advantage of that and try to use you. You're going to get something, but it's rarely going to be as you think, or it's going to work against you long term, whatever. But they take something in return. And really, when it really struck me, when I finally realized this after a couple of years of going through these experiences over and over, I don't know how much time do we have, because like
You're good.
Okay. So in 2020, what happened was basically like I was kind of like heartbroken. I just split up with a girl. She came back to the States from Europe and things like that. And I had this little spell that I received from some kind of psychic woman who had a good, reputation among a lot of my friends, and she used to kind of help me with things. So she was like pretty known, and she gave me this little. It's like literally like a one sentence that you say something to attract a partner. I don't remember the details. It looked very. It didn't look suspicious or anything like that. It was like very innocent. So I said that, I just said, whatever, let's give it a try. This was again like my approach. And then what started happening, I started like, attracting these women, like someone is adding me on Instagram and starting to chat, whatever. But every time there would be something wrong. Like there would be like either, one was in a relationship, the other was like had some health issues and was like into drugs and things like that. So I knew she would kind of pull me with her. So again, I thought maybe this is again like the similar scenario to what happened before. I wasn't 100% sure, but basically what happened was that I attracted finally someone who turned out to be like ridiculous, like not gonna go into details, but basically completely didn't work out as I thought, let's say. But we kind of dated, let's say, for whatever, very short period. And literally the moment we finished, boom, right hand side, heavy energy. And I'm like, I just can't believe it. I just got myself in the same thing for like fourth time. And this is when I finally it clicked what was going on before. So, the week we kind of separated, let's say. I'm not gonna go into details with her because it was like nightmare. But anyway, like I again got what I wanted. It wasn't like what I thought it's gonna look like. I was actually planning to do a mushroom ceremony that week, and it was a big one after a long break. And the funny thing is, the moment when I started planning, so I started planning it from May, and it was late August, and actually I did the spell also in May, so it's almost like, it's almost like to prevent me from not doing the ceremony, because what happened was, the same week we separated, I got this thing on the right side, and it's Friday. And on Monday, I was supposed to drive to the mountains and do the ceremony. And it was like, whatever, 100 kilometers away, something. So I'm going to sleep. And whenever something's wrong, I get dreams. So that night, I have first dream where I'm being shown a scene from the trip. So this is the scene already, like from, it was Friday evening. On Monday, I was driving to stay for a couple of days in the mountains to do the ceremony. And I was supposed to meet a friend there who was traveling from Italy basically all the way. And we're supposed to meet in that place in the mountains to spend time together, things like that. So in the dream on Friday, before going there on Monday, I have a scene shown where I'm meeting with a friend, and there is suddenly like some street fight starts. And there are some guys that basically try to beat up my friend because he said something, whatever. And I try to protect him. So basically I started protecting him. And then I injured one of these thugs and I broke his neck in the dream. And then I woke up, because very often I would wake up from the dream, just to kind of remember what was in the dream. I go to sleep and then I have a second dream. Same dream, exactly the same situation. Same dream, second time. But this time, I did not step in to protect my friend, and my friend got beaten up. So basically, I was shown, okay, you're going to have two different options. If you're going to get involved, you're going to beat up this one guy, is going to like end up really badly. If you're not going to get involved, your friend is going to get damaged. So, I was like driving down thinking like, fuck, I just got myself in some fucked up shit. Just before the ceremony, I have mushrooms with me and stuff like that. If I'm going to get in a street fight, I'm just really going to get in trouble. So, I arrived there and I met my friend. And I'm just telling him, if you're going to see any situation where we got to get attacked, or just please don't start a fight or anything like that, So, like I said before, in the past, when I had this contract, Wolfgang, this guy from YouTube, helped me with his meditation. So I thought, I know he was doing sessions and things like that. So I reached out to him and I said, I explained the situation, and he literally, like within 24 hours, he did a session on me. So when I arrived in the mountains, like we were actually scheduled for a session. And he did some kind of whatever method, like to try to cancel the contract and agreement. And he tapped into that. And he said what happened was that basically I made an agreement with that friend in one of my past lives that I said I will always protect him. And now, because we had a contract together, they try to take advantage of this situation. So he did something, and this contract got transmuted into something else, basically. But what happened was that the energy disappeared from the right side and moved to the left side. And the next day I'm doing the mushroom ceremony, and in the ceremony, these guys showed up, and they're like, first I was being attacked. Like they would, like, for example, like show me like this girl I met, or like sex or some porn, like literally like throwing you visions, like tapping into your third eye and throwing you some nasty visions to kind of get you disturbed. And then I see like someone is like sucking the energy from my heart chakra, it's like almost like this kind of trying to confuse you here, but they are trying to suck the energy from you. So, I had discussions with them, and, they're like, we're going to give you money. I don't want money from you. You can stick it up your ass, basically. So, these types of situations. And the same session, another interesting thing that I learned. So I had a download about Elon Musk, in that session. So I was shown and explained, because during these mushroom sessions, I would do a lot of questions, sometimes about like famous people or whatever. I would be shown like different methods of control of population, things like that. And I was actually explained that Musk is like just pure evil, basically. And one of the goals is to get us to Mars, because like the planet is kind of like being destroyed through our greed. But this is mostly because we are manipulated like a cattle by these beings. And Musk is like this puppet to help us to move to Mars, because basically they want to keep the cattle, the sheep, continue, while if the Earth's gonna get destroyed, whatever. So he's kind of a part of that. And then, I started like thinking more about Musk from that time, because he's actually, building these like invasive technologies like Neuralink. And this is, out of all the people that I asked over the years, he was like the worst of the worst. Like basically, that's what I was shown and explained. And so it's like, just quickly, like touching on Musk. I think that Musk is like a biblical antichrist, because, like in the Bible, for example, in the book of Revelations, they talk about the last days, where like mark of the beast would be something that you would either have in your hand or in your forehead. Rich and poor cannot buy anything without it. And we've been hearing for years about like microchips, that you might be able to use it as a payment systems, whatever. And he's the one actually working on the most advanced brain microchip. And it's also what they say about it is like, he's gonna be this world leader that's gonna trick people into loving him, whatever. And like, he sends fire from heaven to earth, and people are in shock, in awe. And I thought this actually sounds a little bit like his vertical landing rockets and things like that. So from these downloads and from some of the stuff I was explained, I think this is our guy. Like, I think this is even funny, like his Halloween costume was actually some kind of whatever, son of Bahoma or whatever. But basically, 2020, I had this situation, this session, which finally, after all those experiences, all those years, I finally like clicked, okay, so these kind of contracts and implants and things like that. Because before I thought, I know there are some negative beings, archonic beings, reptilian beings, whatever. Maybe they're like Raquel used to tell me, they just feed off your emotions, whatever. That's what I had, this kind of idea, But I didn't realize that it works on levels where you had literally like a farm, people having contracts and implants, sucking energy and things like that. So now, so there are a couple of really also interesting sessions until we got to like 2022, where I had this final encounter with the Mr. himself. But for example, 2021, I had this session where this female appeared, and she was basically, it was like a humanoid figure who, I'm talking about mushroom ceremony, she tapped into my third eye. And when I'm like communicating with anyone, I feel the person I'm interacting with, so I can tell you a lot about her from just the feeling, the energy of her, and she was like super loving, super kind, very gentle, older female, like I like human, just like older woman. And she was speaking to me like you would speak to a child, and wise grandma is just trying to teach you. And she was like, for 3 hours, she was telling me all sorts of things, like showing me my past lives, for example, like she was talking about the reptilian lifetimes, and I have this kind of birthmark, whatever it is here. And she just showed me that and said, this is like some kind of sign, whatever symbol from these lifetimes and things like that. And she was like, oh yeah, when you teach others, just hide your ego. I was like, yeah, I know. Thank you. So I was like this kind of like grateful for her teachings and things like that. And one of the things she said, when she was giving me insights about, like, for example, like it started with marriage. Like the marriage is a control system. I was like, why would marriage be a control system? So because sometimes I would get very specific things, like something about sex, for example, or like these types of things, or even like the whole LGBT thing that's happening now. That session, I was explained that this is all by design, just to kind of, I'm not sure 100% what's the goal here is, probably to get people to argue, maybe to confuse people, I don't know. But, like I was getting these different examples and explanations about it. And one of the things she said that she said Lucifer. At that time, she gave me the name, but I didn't hear the name. Like I connected later on, because later on I was getting more into it. So she said he kind of trapped humans here, human souls on Earth, through materialism. And so this is like one of the times when I heard something like this, right? Then probably one of the most interesting insights that I received in these sessions, which happened, I'm not sure how many times, but like I said, I had this kind of insight where I would jump into the level of the higher self and things like that. So I had something similar. I'm not 100% sure exactly what it was, but I can try to explain this. So this happened maybe 3 times or something, I'm not sure. But a couple of times I got to a level on psychedelics where I would basically be either between densities or at the level of the higher self, I'm not sure. But from that level, it's like, it's not a vision, it's not a download, it's not like normal things you have on psychedelics. This is like something very different. So you're literally shifting your perception from the body into a higher fractal of the collective mind, right? So in that moment, I am in the body here, but at the same time, I see from a higher level where basically I see everything happening on Earth all in the same moment. And I see everything in my life, why things are not fitting, everything is a fractal aspect of myself. And so, the way you can think about it is like, let's say you're a cell in the body and suddenly you became a whole body for a moment. Or, I don't know, you were an ant, you had a consciousness of an ant and suddenly you became a human, It's like a very, very different level of consciousness where you see everything all at once and you see why the world is the way it is, and because it's a timeline and things like that. So you can actually see a timeline from that level as well. And this is insanely powerful experience. It's something that I know, maybe some people who experience something like that, they can understand. But if you never experience that, you're not able to understand it, because it's just completely different perception to like a normal perception from the body. So from that level, I was being warned that we might have a negative timeline, basically, and it was just before COVID hit. So I was being warned, like, this might go into some kind of dark scenario. And when I was seeing that, I was at this state, I was still getting downloads. And I was getting downloads about Lucifer, basically, that shut the kind of like, basically enslaved souls. So my understanding is also, which is kind of from these experiences, plus what they talk about in the Law of One, is that, the souls go through this evolution process. And if they are service to self too much, which is what we do with materialism and capitalism, many of us, they get stuck in the reincarnation cycle. So they cannot evolve into higher densities as a positive beings. And this is more or less what I believe I was shown. So now, like, let's finally, like, not gonna go into maybe a couple of these other experiences, because I had like all sorts of things, like different densities shown up to 12 density and things like that. But finally, 2022, what's happened was that I actually did an interview in Poland which was seen by like 60,000 people within the first couple of days. I was talking about going really deep into like exposing a lot of these things, and even like the history of the US, and then talking about Musk and things like that. And the week after this interview, this was like quite, let's say, big in Poland for this type of community. I had my mushroom ceremony planned, which I planned weeks in advance. So it wasn't, it just happened 1 week after the interview. And it actually coincided with a lunar eclipse, which I did not even know. It was a May 2022. There was actually a lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And the day after the eclipse, I was having my ceremony. I didn't even know about it. So I felt like, that's interesting. I'm not a big fan of eclipses and definitely doing ceremonies with the energy of the eclipse. But I felt like, whatever, let's just do it, because it was planned for weeks in advance, and let's see what's going to happen. So in that session, what's happened was that, I'm going to try to summarize the most important. First half, I had like an operation done on me. So I was, I still had this thing on my back, which I had it for like 2 years now. I was so pissed off that I got myself into that bullshit for like such a ridiculous thing. And I was like trying to get it removed. I felt like, what's my intention gonna be on the ceremony? I felt like, it would be nice to have this removed. and literally, like, I saw this with the third eye, and I see someone is like operating on it. Like, literally, I would see someone doing something. I'm like, yes, it's just gonna have it removed finally. So I was laying, and I would see literally like someone would do like an operation on me, where I saw my throat chakra being enlarged. And I used to have a lot of problems with when I was speaking, because like of dyslexia, sometimes I would like hesitate or whatever. So I saw my throat chakra, and someone just took it like this, like, and within instant, it just got bigger. And then, I was shown contracts from previous incarnations, like different scenes, and I'll be asked questions. Do you want to have this one removed? And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to have this contract. I don't even remember any of this stuff. So I was just repeating, like, clear me up. I want to be ready for my mission. Whatever is that doesn't serve me, let's just remove that. Let's just cancel that. And that was like my mantra. And so it was happening, I was being shown scenes from lifetimes. What about this contract? I'm like, I don't want to have that. So I was like, this is like the best session ever. I'm having this operation, this removed, and things like that. And every now and then there would be some attack, there would be like suddenly everything shifts, and I get these guys again trying to like, disturb me, whatever. And I got like super agitated, because I was like already super comfortable with these sessions. So whenever there would be like some attack, I know they cannot really do anything, because we're in different densities. So I'm just like, I thought this got fully removed. And the next day I found out that wasn't. So I was like, you can't do shit to me. You see, it came out my way anyway, when they started jumping in. So I just became like really arrogant, basically. And suddenly, like, bang, like this black maze just took me over completely. And and I don't see anything. Like, I try to see my hands, you have normally like the third eye vision, which is like you focus and you see whatever is going on there. And then you have normal vision, which I can focus to see here in the body. So the third eye vision got hijacked completely, and I could not see anything, just completely black. And I straight away feel what is going on, because basically what happened was that Lucifer showed up and tried to take me over. And just before entering the forest, I saw 666, just the last car that passed by before I got into the forest had 666 on the number plate. And my cousin is like, oh, look, 666. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, let's just go in. And another thing, couple of days before this, I made a video, which, I don't know, we can show the screenshot, but basically I was talking about how star seeds get hijacked by the dark forces. And I even used the thumbnail with like these red eyes of like this evil being and things like that. So I guess I was subconsciously preparing for what was coming. I did not, I probably knew what was happening. So, suddenly, like, I'm just being taken over completely. I'm like, I just say to my cousin, who's like assisting me always in these sessions, like, you gotta start helping me, because this is like really, really bad situation here. And, normally, like, if there would be any serious attacks, like, we would try to like just do the aura, focus on the heart chakra, try to like put the bubble together, do a little bit of prayer, things like that. But that would work typically for anything that would happen. But this situation, it just was like total blackout, like the most hardcore experience ever. And I'm like trying to do something, I pour water on myself, like, and keep jumping, trying to hug trees, like moving, trying to get him out, basically. Like hugging my cousin, said like, come on, let's try to do something. I need to start feeling myself. And nothing works. And I felt, literally I felt he's gonna like destroy my soul. I felt next day I'm just gonna be completely fucked up. So what I thought, let's try to do the breathing exercise, because when you do the breath work, especially like I used to be very heavy into these types of practices. So I was familiar with a lot of these techniques. And the strongest one of the strongest is the breath of fire. So basically it's like rapid breathing through the nose, like you basically keep constantly stimulating flow of prana, because the more prana you have, the more your aura gets stronger, because like these beings, they are polarized negatively, right? So if you have like strong energy from the heart center and strong aura, this works as your kind of immune system, like your protection. So I started doing that, and I was doing like crazy, like you cannot, honestly, like imagine this is like a scenario, life and death scenario. That's how I felt. So I was just like pushing like crazy, like for 2 hours nonstop, like, and my cousin was standing on top of me and was like praying. And, and every couple of minutes he would leave for like 3 seconds. Like I could just get him out, and he would jump back again. And then again, I'm like, shouting to my cousin, like, keep helping, this helps, and I'm trying to get again, like, just keep doing that. So we did it for 2 hours. And there were some other things, like we had a little conversation. He was like, I used to work for me in Egypt, and he's showing me some stuff. I'm like, I don't remember anything. You're not going to take me, And I'm constantly, there's no agreement. I'm not agreeing on anything, and just like that. And basically, there was also another thing. So before that, this sometimes I would get different entities showing up, and basically some guys showed up, and sometimes like they show you a symbol which represents them. So it looked like basically like when you have, I think, a Saudi Arabia flag, like this kind of Arabic kind of letters on the green. So the symbol looked a little bit like that, like some complex kind of writing. And, I see that and I get downloads like, you're one of us, like they introduce themselves with a symbol and things like that. And I'm like, I saw the symbol and I straight away knew something's odd about the symbol. Like, I don't like the kind of energy of the symbol because like you see there's like a bad vibe about the symbol. And I reminded myself that I actually saw this symbol in a previous session where I was being explained about hierarchies and different things, So like, I'm looking at the symbol, and the more I'm looking at the symbol, the more I start feeling like them. So it's kind of, I think they were grays. I'm not sure, but basically we're like little synthetic, kind of very weird personality. So, they showed up and tried to like talk to me and was like, you're one of us, blah, blah, blah. No. I'm not looking into that, not focusing on. And later when I had this thing with this guy, they showed up. So basically I had like a full-blown attack. These guys, him, and like the reptilians, basically all three just trying to like from every angle, keep attacking. But finally we managed, we like it started fading, after 2 hours more or less. And I was completely exhausted. Like I was just like felt I just finished war basically. And after that, unfortunately, without psychedelics, I started having other attacks. So a couple of months later, I had like a hijacked dream during Halloween, which is interesting why it was on Halloween, because sometimes these periods you have the veil is thinning between like their levels and our level. So they can try to tap into, for example, a dream. So I had a dream where in the dream, I just had to accept Lucifer into myself. And I'm like, I woke up, no, canceling, there's no agreement, blah, blah. Then I had a hardcore experience where basically I got ill. My cousin got ill at the same time. And boom, something just jumped on my back. And for like 2 weeks, without any psychedelics, I had like constantly my thoughts like, oh, Lucifer. And I was feeling like shit. And basically, I meditated every day for a couple of hours, like whole day meditation, just to try to get him out. And it was like super hardcore for 2 weeks. And my cousin was going through the same thing. And then I had a vision, when it was happening, I had a vision from a lifetime where I was wearing these rings that had some pentagrams. And I felt like, okay, this is probably some old contract, because I was being explained a little bit about old contracts as well with these guys. So I felt like, okay, let's just visually remove these rings from my fingers and put them into like a portal and just close it, and boom, it was gone. And I was like, wow, this is just amazing. I can do it myself. But then after like 3 hours, again, like I feel it always comes through the root chakra. Like you feel something's entering you through the root chakra, and boom, same shit. But basically, I had a couple of these without any psychedelics, by the way. This was the last time I did it because of like, I just couldn't really take risks like that with like this kind of scenario. But what happened was that I actually, I went through a session which helped me to remove some of this stuff. So like I had an implant removed. I had this thing from the root chakra removed as well. So it's like a kind of hypnosis. 2 people work on you. One person is a psychic, so it's scanning your energetic body and looking for these types of contracts, devices, entities, implants, things like that. And the second person is working with your higher self and trying to get basically, understand where is what, if you have anything. Turns out that many people have all sorts of things in their energetic field. And I did not tell them anything. So I was like, let's see if this is going to work. I'm not going to tell them what's going on. I know I have a thing here. I know, let's see if they're going to pick up something. And they picked up a lot of stuff, which was amazing. So they picked up the thing on my root chakra, which I was shown, that thing that was sucking the energy. Then they removed that thing from my back, which was, what happened after was, like she said, the woman who was doing the session, she said, after this, you're going to feel weak for a couple of days. And I'm like, come on, this is bullshit. Next day I'm going to the gym. And I was just so weak, like crazy. And for the next 2 months after the session, I had these weird energy discharges on the whole back. So like constantly some kind of electric shocks. And basically what happened, think about it as an operation. So your aura, your energetic body had some kind of etheric implant sucking, for example, energy or whatever else is doing. And they detach that, remove that, but your aura has holes now because, it was like hijacked. So it takes a couple of weeks, same like with your skin or whatever, to heal. So that's why I had these energy shocks, for a couple of weeks after that. So I was in shock that, this worked. And by the way, I had a lot of interactions with Archangel Michael, and this was one of the things I wanted. I wanted to get these things removed. And the week when I had this session, my sister just came and she gave me she said, Archangel Michael, here is for you. She gave me like this toy, whatever it was, like an ornament, of angel. And I had several of these other times where, I felt like this was probably something I asked for help, and the session came as a kind of what I wanted. But basically, it opened me to these tools, these methods that you can remove that. And currently, I became so interested in this method, that I actually I decided I want to train to be running these types of sessions myself. I'm going to be starting a course soon on it because I kind of went through it myself, and I know a lot of people have these types of issues, and maybe I'll be able to help them as well, to remove that and things like that. Yeah.
Wow, Mike. Fascinating, man. You've experienced so much, and from your perspective, you've had a hell of a ride, and you're, not done yet, man. You've got plenty more. So before we, end it here, because we will do that, and then we're going to go into our afterthought, but just leave us on a high note here, man, before we get into some questions here for the afterthought, which will be located down in the show description, guys. Leave us on some high hope here. What gets you out of bed every morning and makes you go, you know what? I'm going to keep putting feet on the floor. I'm going to keep putting my face in this camera. I'm going to keep turning the mic on. I'm going to keep moving forward, man.
I feel like sometimes I talk about negative things or dark things wherever, but, to understand solutions, to know, first you need to understand what is the problem, right? We need to understand that, this is all real deal. There are like these negative beings, whatever, they try to control humans, things like that, but they don't have any power if you don't give them any power. And you are, and if the more you understand how much power you have, because you are the source summary in this body of everything and the most powerful thing ever, you can do anything you want. So really it is important for people to not get scared with any of these types of like, oh, maybe I'm possessed, or maybe I have something on my back, whatever. Even if you have something like that, you can find ways to remove it. Maybe this is to teach you something. So just to not look at these things as something evil, negative always, and be scared, because you don't want to be in that level of vibration. And, I look at these things as experiences that help me to understand it, and so I could overcome it and, learn from it and teach others. But also, I think like it's really important. The most important thing is always to work on yourself and be like, the change and things like that, because the reality you're experiencing is a reflection of who you are, what do you do, how you act. And if you want to evolve, you want to change anything, you need to start with yourself. So really everything is secondary. You don't fight the bad guys, you work on yourself so they don't have any influence on you or whatever. So these are some of the things, and you do things by just keeping your vibrations high with like food, exercise, meditation, positive thoughts, kindness, whatever. But also with like voting with your dollars, trying to support, for example, people like you or me, independent media, people who are like sacrificing everything just to be able to do this type of work, because we get censored, we have our own challenges or whatever, or just like any other person who is, trying to do something positive. So really, this is the secret, the secret is just work on yourself, be the best version of yourself, and don't worry so much about all the bad and negative, and keep your vibrations as high as you can. This is the kind of what I would like to, finish with.